Hello and welcome to your version of Keynote virtually. Here we are I'm coming to you live from my basement in Middleton, Wisconsin. I am Lisa Kennecke, delighted to be with you this evening, this morning, this afternoon. Who knows when you're watching this? I don't know, but all I can say is thank you for having me at the Maine School Counselor Association Conference. Now, you might notice something a little bit different. That's called a Wisconsin accent, and it's all nasal right there. So if you hear me do that, that's just what it is, because I'm a born and bred cheesehead. We are on your avenues to hope, avenues to advocacy, because that's what I love to do. We as school counselors, we are collaborative leaders advocating for systemic change. How do I know that? I've been around a couple, 2-3 times. And before we begin, I do want to say that I also am a diversity and inclusion, I'm a certified diversity practitioner, and I have a degree from Cornell University. Ooh. But with that, what I'm trying to do is I am trying to advocate for people who don't have a voice, for people who need voices. And even though I'm a subject matter expert in the LGBT world, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, and plus, you can substitute what I'm going to talk about today 3 ways to advocate better on your avenues to hope for whatever population you would like. So in my teachings and learnings, I'm learning more about the Indigenous people. And I know that your offices are based out of Auburn, Maine. And so my research on your Indigenous Peoples Day brought me to this land acknowledgement. And if you don't know this, you did have a bill to establish Indigenous Peoples Day in 2019 that was signed at the State House in Augusta. So right now I'm just going to read for you your land acknowledgement. And again, my apologies if I say any names incorrectly. I did try to do some research ahead of time. So this is coming from the University of Southern Maine and the Bertha Crosley Ball Convention for Center for Compassion. My apologies. Center for Compassion is located in Portland, Maine, which is in the traditional territory of the Wabanaki Confederation. We recognize and honor the current tribes who comprise the Wabanaki Confederacy, the Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and Micmac peoples, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We respect the traditional values of these tribes and acknowledge their inherent sovereignty in this territory. We support their efforts for land and water protection and restoration and for cultural healing and recovery. We pause in remembrance of the tribes of the Wabanaki Confederation whose lives and land were taken through genocidal strategies of colonial settlement of this land. We pay respect to elders, both past and present, and we commit to the ongoing work of decolonization in Maine and beyond. So again, regardless of where you are joining me from, we do have Indigenous people. We in Wisconsin have the Ho-Chunk Nation, who might be also known as Winnebago, but it is Ho-Chunk. You are already on your way. You've got hope in a box. Thank you, Tara. You've got your wonderful volunteers there with Conference Central. And I love friend in blonde hair with the very fun sleeves, yellow, blue. Maybe your name is Jill, I don't remember, but very, very exciting. And we are in such a different territory, and we are on this avenue to hope. And so again, volunteers, thank you. I know what it takes. Now, you're probably wondering, I sure hope that Lisa, our keynoter, shows us a picture of a beaver and a lady in a tiara. I try to do what I can for you, my friends. Your wish has now come true. Yes, that is a picture of a beaver on the left as you're looking at the screen for those of you playing at home. I grew up an hour north of Madison in a town called Reedsburg. In fact, my elementary class, we had 11. So all of you rural school counselors, you are wonderful. Now, we were the Beavers. I was our school mascot. That's right. In addition to being the school mascot, I was also the homecoming queen. Oh, good times. Yes, so that is Lisa Kennecke circa 1986 with the tiara and the Farrah Fawcett hair right there. Now, the fun thing about that picture is that I really never wore dresses, makeup, anything. I would be your gender non-conforming type of person early on, but wasn't allowed to be. It wasn't even an option to be gay. So when I was homecoming queen, my mom got me this dress. We had it on loan, and then we took it back after the picture. I know, ethically, that's not the right thing to do, but we did apologize, told them the situation, and we spent a lot of money at that store. So that's a little bit about me right there. Now, again, growing up, the biggest difference where I grew up, you were either Lutheran or you were Catholic. I was forbidden to date a Catholic boy, but they never said anything about a Catholic girl. Hey-oh, so we get back to why does Lisa know anything about advocating for the school counseling world? Well, thanks for asking, my friends. Here's just a little ditty about me. So I am the past president of the Wisconsin School Counselor Association. Very excited, very proud of that. And then after my terms working, well, I'm still a volunteer with WISCA, I ran for and was nominated to the American School Counselor Association Board of Directors. So this is our board picture from 2018. And if you look closely enough, yep, that lady in the back with the short blonde hair who has the rainbow bow tie, that's me. You're welcome, Aska. So I wore a tuxedo to be gender nonconforming, and let's just leave it there, okay? Because I wanted to pave the road for other people to be their true selves, and we'll talk about that a lot. After I was on the board of directors for ASCA, I was asked to become a counselor educator. So now I am very, very proud to say that I am an adjunct instructor for Lakeland University here in Wisconsin, home of the muskies. Don't know what a muskie is? It's that prehistoric looking fish right there. So I am training the next generation of school counselors, and I love what I do. Avenues to hope. Now, again, I said that I grew up in a rural area, and so my street name was a route number 2. If you're out in the country, you might have, I don't know, trails, etc. But you also have lanes. And so I wanted to tell you the difference between a lane, an avenue, and a street. And by this, what I'm doing is I'm trying to bring together the rural school counselors, the suburban school counselors, and those who are urban. So all of you have important work to do. So Penny Lane is one of the most important, my apologies, one of the most famous lanes out there. And if you are a Beatles fan, you know about the song. So a lane basically is a route that you travel, and it is pretty rural. An avenue, and you are close to the ocean right there, is designated by having streets or buildings on a side of the avenue. And then a street is the same thing. It usually has buildings and trees on both sides of a street. So there you go, little geography lesson for you in case you didn't know that. And if you ever get on like a way or something, that usually doesn't go through. So there you go. So you are on an avenue to hope, and you've got trees, you've got buildings, you've got students, you've got everyone on the side of you, whether you are rural, suburban, urban, or maybe you serve all of them. As an instructor of the next generation of school counselors, I am a huge fan of not reinventing the wheel. So take a look at Ask a National Model 4th edition. Now I know you're like, Lisa, I wanted something fun and exciting as a keynote. Well, this is fun and exciting for me because I am all about what research can do. And so research has given us the 4th edition, and you see the little diamond over there. So there are different terms for what we might have been taught early on. And it used to have collaboration, leadership, advocacy, and systemic change around the outside. I still am a collaborative leader advocating for systemic change. The other thing that is really important that I teach my graduate students is the mindsets and behaviors. And so when you have this theme of avenues of hope, I think it's fantastic. And so what I wanted to do was to say, how can we tie this in to the work that you are already doing? Well, on the mindsets, I went with sense of belonging in the school environment. Some of you might be in brick and mortar. Some of you might be hybrid. Some of you might be all virtual. I can tell you in Wisconsin that we are more virtual than we are anything right now. And so it's important to be an ally, to be an advocate for everyone, right? So some people don't want to have their cameras on. Some people can't. Some people don't have access to technology. So I understand that, but I can still advocate for those who don't have a voice because it is important. And we also know that with the mindsets and behaviors, the learning strategy that I pulled out for you is to help our students identify long and short-term academic, career, and social emotional goals. So again, we are not called G-word counselors. We are school counselors. We changed our name in 1990. 1990. So if you still have the term G somewhere, and please change that, because we don't have home ec teachers anymore. We don't have stewardesses anymore. They are now firefighters. They are mail carriers. Okay, you get the idea. A name is important. Just ask our current vice presidential candidate. So, school counselors, voted on in 1990, okay? Academic, social, emotional, and career. So we've changed from personal social to now social emotional. There you go. There's your little instruction on school counseling. Can you imagine having me as a professor 3 hours every night talking about school counseling? So we know that hope, it's so important for kids, students, adults to know what they're going to be doing after high school. And that's why we say post-secondary. We don't necessarily say college, okay? College is important. We know that. But what is that post-secondary? And I loved meeting students where they were at. And in fact, I would get some teachers who would come to me too and say, hey, Lise, can I take a look at that? Absolutely, my friend, because I want to give you hope. That's yours. This is where your hope comes from, Maine school counselors. It's in your bylaws. Did I say I'm the past president? I got to help form our bylaws in the state of Wisconsin. So you have these in Maine. And one of your bylaws states that MISCA is there to promote and support the professional growth of school counselors. I believe we are one of the most important positions and roles in our schools. I know some of you are like, that's right, Lisa. Yes, we are. And if you don't know, our ratios are supposed to be 1 to 250, and some of you are like, mine are way over that. I understand. My middle school, I was a middle school counselor for 12 years, and I actually was very lucky that my ratios were 1 to 400. So with that being said, you're here for professional growth. Now, my hope is that you take some, see what I did there? My hope is that you take something away from this little chat that we have together to advocate for a student, because that's what this is all about. You probably didn't become a school counselor for the money, unless you get paid a lot more money in Maine than you do in Wisconsin, okay? So that's what we're here for, is to promote your professional growth. And then in addition to your professional growth, you need that personal growth. So here is my story. I grew up, you heard, couldn't date a Catholic boy. So Thanksgiving 1996, I was living in the Washington, D.C. area, and I had come home for Thanksgiving. And just sitting around the table, I was like, I can't find a boy that I want to date. There's just no one there for me. Thanksgiving dinner, to which my sister leans in and says, well, Lisa, it's because you're gay. Please pass the carrots. What? How can I be gay? I grew up in Loganville, in Reedsburg. There's no way I can't be that. Well, I was, still am. And this sign right here is so affirming to me, because even as a 51-year-old white cisgender woman of privilege, when my wife and I moved to suburban Madison, we weren't sure what it was going to be like for us personally and or professionally. When we drove down our street, this sign was there, not only on one house, but 2 houses. And we knew at that moment that we had allies. If someone was willing to show, which we'll get into in a moment, that this is what they believe, we knew that we were going to be okay. And that's why we bought our house. You never know what a sign can do and what a difference it makes. Hopefully you have a rainbow sticker somewhere in your office. I know if you signed up early that you got my book that talks you through this as well. So this is the original sign by Kristen Joyner, and she's from Wisconsin. That's why I wanted to show that. 3 ways to be a better ally, to be an advocate. Some people are using the term accomplish. It's showing, shifting, and shaping. That's what this is all about. Some of you are doing this very, very well. Some of you are like, I'm too new, I don't know what to do or say or whatever, and that's okay. All of this is a journey. So you are on your own avenue, your street, whatever you want to be. It does take time. This is not a one and done. This is not a check the box and we are through with this. So showing how you're an ally can be done simply by having a rainbow sticker. Oh yes, look what I have for you, my friends. So that in the upper right hand corner is a progress sticker. And again, subject matter expert, LGBT world, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, I told you that already. This is the original 1978 Gilbert Baker rainbow flag. Actually, the original had pink and turquoise on it. And if you are a historian buff, you'll know that October is LGBT History Month. Gilbert made this flag at the request of Harvey Milk, wanting to bring the gays together in the San Francisco area. It was hard to get the pink and turquoise fabric, so we just went with the rainbow right there. And then Daniel Quasar wanted to add on to this, and so he included the black and the brown chevrons. And that is to represent QPOC, or queer people of color. And then we also have our friends who are transgender with the pink and blue chevrons. And then it's hard to tell, but there's a white little triangle on there, sorry, and that's for our friends who are questioning. So that's one way. Any gay is going to know that you are a safe place if you just have anything rainbow. All gender restrooms are very important because I promise you that you will, sooner than later as a school counselor, have a student come out to you as transgender. And it's going to be so open and affirming for them to know that they're safe. Now, that all gender restroom, I'm not a fan of the person who is wearing half a skirt, but I think that it's a cape, so you can go with that. But it's also important to have a baby changing station. And there's also a person who is differently abled in that sign. You'll see different ones out there, but all gender restrooms should be part of how you show that you have a safe climate. That also can be a part of shaping your policies, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Or as you're looking at this right now, you can show that you are an ally by your pronouns. I have my pronouns in my window right there, she and her, because 3 out of 10 of us know someone who identifies as transgender. Now, I said that I'm cisgender, so what that means is I was born female. I also still identify as female. Transgender is someone who doesn't feel comfortable the way that they were born, and so then they come out as their true selves, just like Laverne Cox did in the upper left hand right there. And then I am happy to say that the little poster that I found, I want to say, came from one of your Maine school counselors saying, how can we represent this in my office? So bravo to you, person who did that. My apologies that I don't know who it is. And then we have other pronoun pins on there. I also have my pronouns in my email signature. And then after my email, or after the pronouns, I have the words, what's this? Hyperlinked, and it takes you to the University of Milwaukee LGBT Center. So you can learn anything else you want to know about LGBT and pronouns. And so I don't know if you saw my little cup, but yeah, I'm drinking water out of this, and I am Lisa K, your everyday gay. Please ask me questions if you want to. Some people don't want to be asked about their identities, and that's okay. Never assume. Just call them friend. That's how you can do it. That is one of the best things that you can do. So when I started this, I didn't say hello, ladies and gentlemen, because not everybody fits in that binary. When you're working with your students and your staff, whatever it might be, say, hello, 5th hour, welcome, scholars, whatever it might be. And keep in mind that every family is not constituted by a man and a woman who are married. That's heteronormative biases that we have, so let's not do that. Let's think about parent guardian. Let's think about even calling them caregivers. These are things that I do with my graduate students. I'll even give them in the reflections, I'll use different types of families, I'll use different languages, so that when they are reading things, that it's not always just through a white privilege lens. Okay, so that's ways that you can show. And I can't wait to hear how you're doing this when we have our little question answer time. Show that you're an ally. Shift from a small a to a capital A ally. Some of you have already done this splendidly. A small a ally is someone who hears a homophobic or a transphobic joke and doesn't say anything or do anything. Could be a racist joke, whatever it is. Now, maybe it's because it's their boss saying it or a family member, and so they don't know what to say, or maybe the timing isn't right. But then that capital A ally will hear that same derogatory joke and say something. A capital A ally is like, you know what, that's not cool. Don't do that. A capital A ally might see a meme on social media and might private message that person and say, you know what, not okay. I, in fact, just posted something today that says that I would much rather be included. Oh, I won't remember it, so never mind, I'll tell you later. But my shift happened when I had a 12-year-old student come into my office and tell me, Miss Kennecke, it's easier pretending to be a boy than it is to be gay in this town. I was a 40-year-old woman of white privilege, and I wasn't out to my students. And here, the student of color had more courage than I did. So I looked at my desk, and this is the Trevor pen that I saw. And I keep this with me for every conversation that I have, because the Trevor Project is the nation's leading suicide risk 24-hour hotline. So Trevor Project has done research, and we know that it only takes one supportive adult, just one, to reduce suicide attempts in LGBT youth by 40%, 40. So think about making that shift. Think about how you can save lives right there. And then that shift from that student had me come out the next day to that student as well as to everyone else. And then that shifted me into, I'm going to be talking about shaping in just a moment, our policies. The shift also helped me to write my book. I started 2-year blogging so that every school counselor would have resources available to them, A through Z, on how to work with the LGBT students. And your shift can happen, my friends. If anyone comes out to you, the best thing that you can say is thank you. You could also say siblings instead of brothers and sisters. Maybe someone new comes in and you're like, hey, tell me about your family. Okay, wouldn't that be nice, rather than just assuming that there's a mom and a dad at home? So siblings is another way that you can be inclusive in your language. So going back to my student, thinking about our policies. That student was going through a lot, and I knew that I needed help in advocating for that student and policies. So that student and another family worked together. I worked together with those families, as well as a community agency. And what we did is we took a look at our pupil non-discrimination policies. And this is where enumeration comes in and why it is so important. In there, we were just talking about how we would help students who, sexual orientation was one of the enumerated populations. And we knew that we needed to go above and beyond that. So in addition to sexual orientation, our best practice back 10 years ago was to also include gender nonconforming and gender identity into our pupil non-discrimination policies. So again, that is going to be something that you could do as you shape your policies, not only for the students. Wouldn't it be affirming if the staff had something like that? Maybe you know a staff member who has transitioned to become their true self. Maybe you're working with a student. I've had this situation as well, where family got divorced because one of the adults was transitioning. So not only are you working to advocate for the student, who is our most important person, usually, you're also, as a school counselor, in my opinion, advocating for staff, and you're also advocating for the families and the community. Like I said before, in the school district that I worked at, I was the diversity, and I was offered other jobs, other places. And one of the things that I always did was I always looked at their mission and vision statement. And if we weren't enumerated out or included, I didn't want to work there. In fact, that led me to the school district where I stayed for a long time because I was offered a job at 2 different schools on the same day. And so I'd done my research. And the one school had sexual orientation enumerated out. And even though gender identity and gender nonconforming wasn't there yet, I knew that we could do some work there. And so I stayed, even though I was offered bigger jobs at urban settings where I probably could have been more, it would have been more representative. But I decided to stay. I wanted to stay for that student, to see that student through graduation, and that student graduated with honors, not because of me. But my hope was that that student would find their true self, and they did. You in Maine have been doing a lot of good work. Think about this conference. It's fantastic. Your Department of Education, I have spoken with them, they're allies, and bravo to Bonnie, who is now going to, I think she is now the president of the state of Maine. I don't know if you have, I'm just kidding, Bonnie, love you, not in a romantic way. But she's working so much to advocate for all of you as school counselors because it's so important. And then as I was, again, doing more research, you have accessible educational materials. I wish that I had closed captioning for you. I wish that I had a sign language interpreter. For those of you who are differently abled, know that you are in my heart and my thoughts. And how cool that you have civil rights teams. I know that, again, I talk to Bonnie a lot. I know that she has one. Angela is doing a lot of good work for the state of Maine. Well, all of you are. So I'll just stop with that. Otherwise, I have to call everyone out because you're all friends of mine now. Isn't that awesome? So again, your avenues to hope. So think about this, my friends. Here's your action plan. What are 3 things you have done or could do on your avenue to hope? Do you have pictures on your website that are not just stock photos of pretty white models? On your website, especially your counseling website, do you have pictures of your students? Have you asked students to help with what they would like to see on there? Have you included parents who don't have access to the website? Now, that's kind of weird that I say that, but just think about how can you give resources to people who might not have the access to technology or have the internet. So think outside of your privilege lens. Now, some of you, and I don't mean to shame you when I say that, but just think bigger and broader. So 3 things that you have done, because I'm sure that you have. If you haven't, you could volunteer for MESCA. They would love that because we always need volunteers, okay? Especially for your advocacy and legislative group. I don't know what you call it, but we were always looking for people there. Maybe through this presentation, this little keynote, you've got 2 ideas that have piqued your interest. You know what? I want to find more out about what are people who are intersex. Or maybe I can do a land acknowledgement. Or, you know what? Ross Green is going to be talking about legging skills. How can I learn more about that? Or you could reach out to Lisa Kenneke and say, hey, Lisa, tell me more about your book. Tell me more about the LGBT world, because I'd be happy to do that. And in your action plan, my friends, what is one thing that you can do tomorrow to show that you are a capital A ally on your avenue to hope? Get involved. Join these friendly people. Look at how fun they are. And if not, let's keep in touch, my friends. I have a website. You can check out my TED Talk on there, lisafromwisconsin@gmail.com. And I would be delighted to answer any questions you have because I am Lisa K, your everyday gay. Thanks for listening. I can't wait for the questions and answers. Let's get it rocking and rolling.